Look down at the water. It isn't the blue of a postcard. It is a thick, churning black soup, smelling of tar, salt, and raw sewage. Down there, knee-deep in the freezing sludge, a child, a mudlark, scavenges for a single dropped copper nail or a piece of coal. But pull back. Keep pulling back until that child becomes a speck, lost in the shadow of 1,000 wooden holes. This is the River Mersey, and this is not just a port. It is a forest of masts so dense you could almost walk from Cheshire to Lancashire without touching the water. It is a sight that would terrify a modern captain, a chaotic traffic jam of the global age. But ask yourself this: why? Why did a muddy tidal estuary on the edge of England become, for a brief, blinding moment, richer than London? Why did the fate of the American Civil War hang on the decisions made in these damp brick warehouses? And why did 9 million souls gamble their lives to pass through these gates? This is Liverpool, 1860, the second city of the empire, the gateway to the New World. But gates swing both ways. To understand how this city built the modern global economy, we have to look past the marble statues and into the engine room. We have to walk the streets where hope was the currency, and human beings were just another form of ballast. To walk through Liverpool in 1860 is to walk through a hallucination of Rome, built on a foundation of coal. Standing on Lime Street, you look up at St. George's Hall. It is a masterpiece of neoclassical ambition. Vast, white columns rising out of the industrial gloom. It screams permanence. It screams civilization. But take a breath. The air here doesn't smell like marble. It tastes of sulfur, horse manure, and the heavy, yellow smog that clings to the sandstone like a second skin. This is the New York of Europe, a city of violent contrasts. On the cobblestones of Water Street, polished carriages carrying merchant princes jostle for space with handcarts piled high with sacks. Inside the Cotton Exchange, men in silk top hats are screaming. They aren't fighting, they are trading. They are buying the future harvest of a plantation in Mississippi and selling it to a mill in Manchester before the crop has even been planted. Out on the river, the paddle steamers cut through the gray chop, ferrying armies of clerks and laborers from the Wirral. It feels unstoppable, a perpetual motion machine of commerce. But this prosperity is a double-edged sword. You see, Liverpool produces almost nothing of its own. It doesn't weave the cloth, it doesn't grow the food. It is a middleman on a planetary scale. Its wealth relies entirely on the stability of nations thousands of miles away. It feeds on the cotton of the American South and the grain of the American West. The city is a golden parasite, growing fat on a global system that is about to catch fire. And as history shows us, when a city builds its foundation on the labor of others, the cracks don't appear in the walls, they appear in the soul. What powered this machine? It wasn't just coal, and it wasn't just gold. It was a terrifying, invisible geometry known as the new triangular trade. To understand it, you have to look 30 miles inland to Manchester. By 1860, Manchester is the cottonopolis, the industrial stomach of the world, devouring raw fiber and spitting out textiles. But Manchester has no ocean, so Liverpool becomes the mouth. The mechanism works like a relentless conveyor belt. British ships leave these docks, heavy with crates of Sheffield steel, Staffordshire pottery, and Lancashire cloth, bound for the Americas and Africa. But the return journey poses a problem in physics. A ship needs weight, ballast, to cut through the Atlantic swells. Raw cotton is light, timber is bulky. To maximize profit, the shipping lines realize there is another resource that can pack itself into the dark, airless holds. Human beings. This is the vector, the emigrant trade. Liverpool becomes the funnel for a continent on the move. The Irish fleeing the memory of the potato blight, Germans escaping political upheaval, Scandinavians chasing land. They flood into the city, not as guests, but as human cargo. To manage this chaotic flow of goods and people, the city invents a new operating system. Enter Jesse Hartley, the genius civil engineer who looks at the chaotic old harbor and decides to rewrite the rules of physics. He implements the concept of the bonded warehouse. It is a stroke of bureaucratic brilliance, a legal loophole that allows merchants to store goods without paying import duties until they are actually sold. It turns the port into a tax-free holding zone, a massive commercial battery storing economic potential. But while the goods are protected by law, the people are not. The American consul in Liverpool, the famous writer Nathaniel Hawthorne, walks these quays and writes in horror of the poverty he sees. He realizes that in this mechanism, the cotton bales are treated with more reverence than the families sleeping on the wet stones. If Liverpool is the machine, then the Albert Dock is its CPU. Constructed by Hartley, this isn't just a place to park boats. It is a fortress of trade. Before this, ships unloaded on open wharves, vulnerable to thieves, fire, and the weather. The Albert Dock changes everything. It is a closed loop. Ships sail directly inside the warehouse complex, surrounded by 5-story walls of fireproof brick and iron. It is the most secure, efficient cargo interface on the planet. Imagine standing there at dawn on a Tuesday in November. The fog is thick, rolling off the Mersey, dampening the sound of the waking city. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by a high-pitched hiss. It is the sound of hydraulic power. Years before electricity becomes common, Liverpool is running on high-pressure water. Look up. Massive hydraulic cranes, advanced robotics of the Victorian age, swing silently overhead. They lower iron hooks with surgical precision, lifting 500-kilogram bales of premium American cotton from the hold of a clipper. The bales are gently swung through the open warehouse doors, untouched by human hands, safe, dry, and valuable. Now, cut your eyes to the landing stage just across the water. The scene is violent chaos. Hundreds of Irish families are being herded like cattle towards the gangplanks of a packet ship. There are no hydraulic cranes for them. They carry their entire lives in bundles on their backs, shoved forward by runners and shouting mates. They are stepping into the steerage, the dark, unventilated 'tween decks, where they will spend the next 6 weeks fighting suffocation and disease. At the Albert Dock, the system protects the product. At the landing stage, the system processes the biomass. And in 1860, the tragic reality is clear. The cotton has a guaranteed value. The people do not. Let's trace this mechanism on the map. Let's follow a single unit of human cargo through the machine. Call him Patrick. He is a farmer from County Cork, and he has just arrived at Lime Street Station. The moment he steps off the train, the noise hits him like a physical blow. This is the intake valve. But to get to the ocean, Patrick must navigate a predatory labyrinth designed to strip him of every last farthing before he leaves British soil. He walks out into the grey rain and turns north towards Scotland Road. This isn't just a street. It is a slum of legendary density. The air here is thick with the smell of roasting oats, unwashed wool, and the pigs that are allowed to roam free in the gutters to eat the garbage. Patrick is intercepted by a runner, a smooth-talking con artist working for a lodging house. The runner grabs his trunk, promising a clean bed and a cheap ticket. It is a lie. Patrick is led into a boarding house where 20 strangers sleep in a room meant for 4. Here, the system extracts its toll. Inflated prices for stale bread, bribes for the ticket agent, fees for the luggage. By the time Patrick leaves, he has to sell his wife's wedding ring just to buy enough hardtack for the voyage. He continues south, past the Gorey piazzas. The name itself is a ghost. named after a slave island off the coast of Africa. 50 years ago, men shackled in iron stood here. Today, it is piled high with cotton, but the shadow of human ownership still hangs over the bricks. Finally, he reaches the Prince's Landing stage. It is a massive floating pontoon, rising and falling with the violent tide. This is the end of the line, the bottleneck. Patrick is shoved forward, his ticket stamped, his body counted. He steps onto the gangplank, leaving the solid earth of Europe for a wooden world that will toss him for 6 weeks. He is lucky. He got out. But what about those who stay? What happens when you pour the population of a metropolis into a medieval infrastructure? The machine begins to overheat. Liverpool in 1860 is suffering from a catastrophic biological failure. The city is growing so fast that it has begun to eat itself. As the wealthy move to the breezy heights of the suburbs, the working class is packed into the earth. 20,000 people are living in cellars. These are not apartments. They are damp, windowless caves beneath the street level, often flooded with the toxic runoff of the road above. There is no ventilation. There is no light. It is a perfect incubator for the silent killers, typhus and cholera. Walk into a court, a narrow yard surrounded by high tenements. In the center, there is a single standpipe meant to serve 100 people. Next to it is an overflowing privy ash pit. The water and the waste exist inches apart. The medical knowledge of the time calls this miasma, bad air. They are wrong. The enemy is microscopic, swimming in the very water that exhausted dock workers drink after a 12-hour shift. Here is the cruelest irony of the system. Liverpool is the global capital of trade. It imports the world's soap, the world's medicine, and the world's food. Yet, in these dark alleys, the life expectancy of a laborer plummets to just 26 years. The city is burning through human lives faster than it can bury them. The logic of the market has maximized the efficiency of the docks, but it has utterly neglected the maintenance of the people who operate them. The cemetery at St. James is filling up, row by row, a silent ledger of a system that knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. But the golden age of 1860 was living on borrowed time. Just months after our snapshot, the invisible tether connecting the Mersey to the Mississippi snapped. In April 1861, the American Civil War erupted. The Union Navy blockaded the southern ports. The white gold, cotton, stopped coming. The mills of Lancashire fell silent. This was the cotton famine, a shock that should have destroyed the city. But Liverpool is a survivor. It didn't collapse. It adapted. In the shadows of these very shipyards, shipbuilders began a secret, illegal operation. They constructed warships for the Confederacy, including the infamous CSS Alabama. The city chose profit over neutrality, keeping the war alive to keep the trade routes open. The gamble paid off. When the smoke cleared, the cotton returned. But the true legacy was the infrastructure itself. The massive stone docks, built by Jesse Hartley, were so over-engineered, so robust, that they survived the end of the sail era and birthed the age of the ocean liner. It was here, in this registry, that the Titanic would later be inscribed. By the turn of the century, the numbers were staggering. 9 million people had passed through this needle's eye. If you are American, Canadian, or Australian, there is a high probability that your own history walked across these wet cobblestones. Liverpool didn't just build an economy, it populated a hemisphere. Walk the Albert Dock today, and the silence is deceptive. The soot is scrubbed away. The warehouses that once held slave-grown cotton now hold museums, cafes, and luxury apartments. The water is clean. But don't let the gentrification fool you. The machine hasn't stopped. It has just moved downstream and scaled up. Look at the container ports of Shanghai, Rotterdam, or Los Angeles. We have replaced the wooden barrels with steel boxes and the chaotic masts with automated gantries. And what of the human cargo? Turn on the news. People are still packing their lives in the plastic bags, paying life savings to runners, and climbing into the back of refrigerated trucks or unseaworthy dinghies, hoping to slip through the cracks of the developed world. The global supply chain is more efficient than ever, but it is still driven by the same ruthless calculus that governed Liverpool in 1860. Maximize the flow of goods and treat human suffering as a logistical rounding error. Liverpool teaches us a hard lesson. When a city becomes a pure engine of commerce, it can achieve miracles of scale. It can build the world. But a machine has no conscience. It will burn coal, it will burn cotton, and if we are not careful, it will burn us. Anyways, I'm Tim, tracing the wake of the empire so we can see where the current is taking us. And together, we keep history reborn. I'll see you in the next era.